So in the beginning, so there's like suffering in the beginning, I think. For me, there was. Yeah. In the beginning, it was tough. And I was young, and I had friends that had started entry-level positions. And as we got older, they started to make more money and move up the corporate ladder. And that was a great path for them. And there were times in my life where I thought I had made the wrong decision because I hadn't made it yet. Because success, I think in general, and at least I think in real estate too, even though you're always stacking bricks and trying to buy more properties and get your cash, success doesn't really go like this. It kind of does like this, and then you spike up, and you kind of do that, you spike up again. And so there were times in my life where I was, doing this for so long that I started to lose faith. Yeah. And it's difficult. And I stuck with it. And eventually I got up to there where for me, I still need to work, but I guess I could work less if I really wanted to and try to live off my properties.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth podcast, where I, Kyle, from Kyle Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? The guest on this week's episode of the podcast is doing some huge things in the local private lending space. Michael has been in several different parts of the real estate industry over his career, from being a real estate agent to an investor to a private lender. In this first of two-part interview, Michael and I get to talk about some pretty big topics to set you on a great path to doing great things as a real estate investor. In this episode, we get into mentor relationships, the insane power of building a presence on social media and putting yourself out there, making it through the learning curves in the beginning of the journey, and so much more. There is so much to learn from this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 65 of the Creating Wealth podcast. Today, we get the great pleasure of chatting with Michael Garrity, the managing partner for RF Boston, an above-average private lender in the Boston area. What's going on, Michael? How are you, man? What's new?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I am great. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Michael, to kind of jump right into things, like, what do you do? Like, if you could tell me a little bit about like RF Boston, like your backstory, your humble beginnings.
So RF Boston stands for Real Estate Finance, and we do private lending. And I'll jump back and say, because we talked a little bit before.
Yes.
We went live. And I have a similar background, though you're starting before me, but I have a similar background. So you're
21.
21. Yeah, you're starting way before me. So you're going to be a ninja by the time you're 30. But when I was about 30, and prior to that, I was a bartender, bartending in Boston. And I wanted to do, and we talked about this before, I wanted to go into the entrepreneurial, direction.
Yeah.
And I see that, and I look at real estate, and those really go, I think they're like kind of an easy marriage, right? It's because we had talked about it. So you're buying a 3-family in Leominster.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. This is your first house.
Yes. And
you get great leverage on that. You're getting 96.5% leverage if you do an FHA loan.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to buy a business like a restaurant, that's a tough sell, right? You buy a restaurant for $500,000 and you need like $500,000 because you can't get any leverage on it. And then you need a ton of startup money. And there's probably you don't even know if the income's going to come in. You kind of have almost set income because you know what the market rate is in Leominster, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I was bartending. I wanted to get into something, and I started doing rentals. And then I started doing sales. And I started rubbing elbows with people that own multifamily properties all around Boston. And so I'm like late 20s, early 30s, and I'm dealing with people that are probably in their 40s and 50s And they were all pretty wealthy. None of them had jobs. They all just were in real estate full time. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
This is awesome.
Yeah. And so I got into real estate. The only problem was, so I started buying real estate. I bought a 3-family, sold that, bought another 3-family, kept that, bought another 3-family, subdivided the lot. I got the lot approved. That was in 2007. And then in 2008, the market ended up crashing really bad. So it went from being great, and then all of a sudden, boom, all my properties are underwater. It was a really tough time.
Yeah.
And then in 2009, 10, 11, 12, though, that was a time when you could buy real estate super cheap. So I started buying real estate then, but I didn't really have a lot of money. So I started using private lenders. And in 2012-ish, the market started coming back a little bit, or at least it did to me, it seemed like. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe I got to get into something different. And I said to myself, all these real estate private lenders are making a ton of money off me. I started looking at these HUDs and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of money to be made here. So I decided to go into private lending for that reason. And also there weren't that many lenders in Boston. In fact, there were only like 5 private lenders in Boston back in 2008 to 2014. And because there weren't that many, this customer service just wasn't that good. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to open up a lending company and I'm going to give like the best service ever. Because I was a borrower. I know what it feels like. The only issue I had was a lot of other people had the same idea. Now there's a lot of private lenders. I think that really helps borrowers out a lot. There's a lot of options out there. But that's my story. That's kind of how I started. I was a borrower myself. And I really became passionate for me. And when I was doing real estate, I was as an agent like you are. I was helping people, and you get it feels good, right, to help people.
It does,
right? And then you get your sphere of influence, and then people are coming to you for help. It's the same thing as a lender. And now I have a bunch of people that I work with, and I like to think we're helping them to grow. Right. Because if you go to a regular bank, sometimes it's harder. So we're helping people that did what I, did before. I wasn't overly successful at it. I think most of my customers are probably more successful than I am, but I'm helping them to grow and reach their real estate dreams. I guess that's kind of it. That was corny, but anyway.
No, it's true. I love that, man. That's awesome. Way to kind of jump right into it, like owning a couple multis for yourself and really getting into that sphere. And then you're totally right as an agent. You know what I mean? Running into some of those people that are doing what you want to do. I'm being these guys can do it. Why can't I?
I definitely. I actually find that even I just turned 49, so I'll be 50 next year. But even at my age, I'll go back to when I was your age, and people were in their 30s and 40s that were entrepreneurs or real estate developers and ahead of me. If you just ask, a lot of those people want to share their knowledge. And I still feel like that now. And age doesn't matter; it's experience is what really matters. Mm-hmm. But I think you can learn a lot just from asking. And I think if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to get into real estate, and you start as an agent, you can meet a lot of people that can give you a lot of value. Even if you don't even never do a representation and you don't make any real money, the value of just meeting people, you probably get it just from hosting this podcast to meet so many people, right?
Yeah, it's you're definitely right, man. You know what I mean? That was something that was really an eye opener to me, starting to kind of get into the real estate investing world, is how many people would, at the drop of a hat, go and get coffee with you or hop on the phone and connect and have a conversation. And it was just really interesting, as somebody just kind of jumping into things, how would these kind of people react? Am I wasting their time? That kind of thing. And for the most part, 99.9% of people are more than happy to, like you said, share their knowledge and tell their story and just make those relationships. And, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think some of the function of that is that's how we all got to where we are. Most of us, we had some sort of mentor whether it was like a mental relationship or not. I'm sure there's probably an agent in your office that's older that has like 50 listings. It's a horse, at the agency. And the more you spend time with that person, you start to get just it rubs off on you, and you understand what they're doing, and it makes you better whether you want to be an agent or you want to get into real estate and own more properties.
It definitely does. It's like osmosis, like who you surround yourself with, like, being the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Like if you hang out with rock stars, like it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
did you get that from like we were talking earlier, I was telling you, like I used to drive around and listen to the audio CDs, when I was younger. I still do actually. Now it's Audible, but back then it used to be the CDs. But is that the 5? Is that like, quote unquote, that's supposed to be like the truth, like the 80-20 rule is you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not sure who said it originally, but like I've heard it like all over the place, like podcasts, like people just talking about it, like in books and stuff. I'm not sure who exactly said it first, but it's something that's like really stuck with me is like, the people that you surround yourself with. Like if you surround yourself with, like we're talking about, like people who are like aspiring to do big things and like, starting to get deals under their belt, or like, have a lot of listings or whatever, you're going to gravitate a lot more and build some of those habits, like just from like being around those people. But, like if you're around like a different crowd, like same thing, kind of goes in either direction. Like if you hang out with people that are doing things a lot bigger than you, like, yeah, I mean, you're going to level up with those people. But like, it also, kind of works on the flip side too. Like if you're kind of hanging around people that aren't really kind of fitting your vision for the long term, I guess you could say it's probably going to reflect as well.
I think I'm going to take my AirPods off because they're dying, but I think you are totally right. In fact, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more you talk about that, I think it gives you the confidence too. So it gives you the confidence. So if you're buying your first property in Worcester, 3-family.
Yes.
FHA, you're going to live in it.
Yep.
And what's your next goal? Is probably to buy another 3-family. But if everybody that you knew and all your friends were all buying condos or a single family first to live in, you probably wouldn't have that confidence to do it because it's a little bit scary.
It is.
Buying a property, or you're buying a property where you may, not you, but anybody may not be able to afford the mortgage, just looking at the mortgage. But then you say, I can't afford it if I can get the rent from these 2 units. And it doesn't sound scary, but it is scary.
Yeah.
And then you got the confidence to do it because you see other people doing it. And then you might buy 5 or 6 of them and start to feel real good. And then other people you see are like, well, that's great. You're buying a 3. We only buy 20 unit buildings. And then unit building, you're like, this is even scarier because it's like pick up an extra bar shift and say, I'm going to cover that mortgage. Like it could be a $20,000 a month mortgage.
Yeah.
But if you want bigger buildings, then that's what you get into. So I think that's probably on the get out of the real estate side. I think that's a great lesson. I think if nothing else, you get out of this podcast, I would take that.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. It definitely is pretty scary. And like, I don't know, like you said, like, especially like the mortgage, like I was looking at the loan estimate docs and it was saying the mortgage is going to be like 2,770-ish or like 3,000 was floating around somewhere too. And like, as an individual, like if you're just buying like you said, like a condo or a single family, like that's crazy. Like, but because you have 1-2 tenants, with this property, like there's potential to make like a couple more bedrooms, like a value add kind of thing. I don't know how it all works yet, but and potentially have even like a couple roommates, renting out like 1 bedroom or whatever, like, in your
brilliant. That would be brilliant.
Like,
right. Why would you live in that 3-family by yourself, right? I mean, if you had a wife and kids, that might be different, but you should be making the if you have a giant dining room, if you have a giant kitchen, you don't really, a giant living room, and you don't need the dining room, and you don't make that dining room into a bedroom and live with, 2 or 3 roommates and get your cash flow up so that you can, buy the next one, give you the confidence to.
Exactly. I love the idea of that so much with real estate is like, I feel like it's a lot more of a creative kind of asset. Like if you're invested in stocks and stuff, like that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like, that stuff's like wicked cool, but like you just like buy it and liquidate it.
It's a little bit of a scratch ticket to it.
Yeah, pretty much, Yeah. But with real estate, like you can look at it from like a different lens, and especially, like we were talking about earlier, like if you're hanging around with people that are, buying like 5 or 6 units or 20, like they're going to look at things differently. And, like if you have like extra space or something, like they might look at it different and be like, dude, like you can turn that into 1 or 2 more bedrooms easy. Like, here's how to do that, and like you have a lot more control over the asset. And, like you could just kind of do things differently. And I think it's like the coolest thing in the world. Like there's nothing out there like that.
And that's why it can be scary, I think, for people that haven't done it yet, because they don't know. It's not, I think once you get into it, you'll be fine and you'll figure it out pretty quick. And the great thing about real estate is that even though all real estate, they're all a little bit different, you can kind of rinse and repeat a little bit. That's the cool thing about real estate. If you buy a 3-family, you can figure out that, okay, I'll find one where the kitchens aren't that nice and they're not utilizing the space correctly for the number of bedrooms. And you go in there and you say, okay, well, now it's the gross rent is $3,000 a month. You're going to go in there, and after a year, you get the rents up to $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
Now the system. And at least you may not know now how to convert a warehouse, but if you buy another 3-family, you know what to look for.
Yeah. And that's huge. It's absolutely crazy. And like, hopefully like area rents are always going to be, kind of going up slowly. And it's pretty interesting.
Worcester is an ascending market right now, not just because everywhere's an ascending market, but because there's a lot of development going on in Worcester, and the amateur Woo Sox are all going there.
Yep.
Development and hotels there. That's a suburb of Worcester, so I think it's a good spot to buy.
Yeah, I really like Leominster a lot.
I almost bought a property. I came very close. I think I maybe got outbid on a 5-unit in Leominster. That would have been my first property, and then I ended up sticking in Boston, but.
Yeah.
So what you could do too is you do really well, and then you have your friends, and they see you do it, and then if they don't want to do it on their own, and you're going to do a second one, now you can influence your friends to do it.
Definitely.
That's where the value is. I think I see a lot of people under 30. When I was under 30. We were out on Friday night doing stupid things, not thinking about being an entrepreneur and being smart. And I'm a little bit, as much as like everyone wants to make fun of like the generation before them, I think. Yeah. But I see a lot, and it's easier to see because there's social media, there's LinkedIn and Instagram, and then people tell their stories. And I think that, so you get a clearer picture of like what's going on. And I see a lot of people in their 20s coming together. So there'll be 5 or 6, maybe 10 friends come together, and they're buying multifamilies, not just 2s and 3s and 20 units. You see it on LinkedIn, right? Yeah. Or social media. And I think I'm just so impressed that people so young, they figured out a way that they can get in. They really can't get in by themselves because they don't have the liquidity, and they can come together and buy 20, 40, 100 unit buildings. I saw one. It was in Gardner, which is pretty close to you. And I actually know the name, but I don't know. I don't want to say it just because I don't know if I'll get angry or not. But they had it on LinkedIn, and they just bought their first, I think it was like a 50 unit building. And none of those guys were they're all like 25.
That sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah, you probably know the
really
guys.
familiar.
Yeah, you probably know. If you know, you can say, I don't know. I don't want to hear people out. But.
No, you're totally right, man. You know what I mean? Like it's absolutely unbelievable. And even like, especially, like to have people that know, that have done this before, and like, this isn't like their first project, as like the general partners for something like this, and then can like really boil it down, to everybody that, oh, who knows, maybe you have like a little bit of money in your house, or like, savings that you're not really sure what to do with. And like, you can show them like, hey, if you're interested in something like this can be a really crazy option for you, and like to kind of get you in the door and like, see what's going on without, maybe having like too much control right off the bat and having it be like overwhelming, and like, a really great way to maybe kind of get into real estate investing, in a much more passive kind of way.
You should be the leader of your group. Yeah, I think there is an opportunity for the younger, the 20 to 30 generation to come together in groups of their friends. You don't have to go out and like you can do it organically. And you maybe I would buy the first one I would buy. I would use FHA by yourself because you can put 3.5% down and buy a 3 or a 4 family. The next one you buy, if you want to buy a multi-unit, especially if you go past the 4 units, you got to come up with 20% down. You probably come up with that anyways. I think even on a 2 and 3 for an investment, probably minimum 20% down. And so you can get over that hurdle by coming together. And if you need 200 grand, that might be a tough hurdle. But if you need 20 grand with 90 of your friends, that's a hurdle that you can get into.
Yeah.
And I don't, even if the property's only cash flowing a little bit in the beginning, it's not like you're not looking to get rich. The one thing that I think the 20 and 30-year-old generation has is they have some time, right?
Yeah.
Like you can make money at your job, and then you can build wealth. And by the time you're 40 years old, you might own 10 of those, and they'll all be cash flowing. When you first buy a property, typically your mortgage and your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is here, and the rents are probably like right here.
Yeah.
But what happens over time, your mortgage is going to stay the same unless you cash out. But what happens over time is the rents go up like this, and the insurance goes up a little bit, the water bill goes up a little bit, but it really does this over time. So you're not going to get rich buying multifamilies typically in the first year. It's really about 5 or 10 years down the road, you're really starting to get the value. And not only are you making cash flow, but you're paying down the mortgage. So the way I look at it, if someone says, how much money do you make? I wouldn't just look and say, okay, well, I made this much money this year. I would say, how much money did I pay down on all my properties, right? And you're in an ascending market. The values of those properties goes up and down. It's always probably going to go up over time. But if you just look at just the mortgage alone, you're paying principal and interest, so obviously the interest gets taken out. But if you do just the principal alone, I would say whatever you're making, add on that principal pay down, because that's adding to your wealth.
I love that, man. That's so true. I really like the way you describe that too, of like kind of opening that spread that opens over time, of like your payments and stuff going down, with a couple things going up, obviously that everybody has. And then like rents increasing, or, like finding different ways to, what's it called? Like to make more money on the property. Like, I don't know, like calling up laundry machines and stuff, right, or like extra parking spaces or what have you.
And I think it takes a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
But after you do a few, and you're going to have one under your belt in about 10 days. Hopefully. But you start to you'll go to see a property and you'll say, I don't think we can get the rents up here. Like this property's kind of maxed out where it is. I think I'll pass on this one. I'm going to find one that is a little bit cheaper, but I know I can go in here and this is a 2-bed. We're going to make this a 3-bed. we're going to put coin up here, right? We're going to do the kitchen over, and we're going to take the tenant out that's been there for 10 years, that's never had a rental increase because the landlord really likes the person.
Yeah.
We're going to get them out. It's a terrible person I am, but get them out, turn it into a 3-bed, and then, get optimal rent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really huge, man, is like, like going into a property and seeing like a value add potential. So like if there is like extra space or something, be like, oh, like, like I know this guy that's done this before, like, I've done this in like one of my properties, like this is how the process works. Like, oh, this could totally be another bedroom. Or like, if we swap this around like this, and like just kind of seeing it from like a different lens. And it's pretty important, like you said, like I feel like, it comes with experience and stuff. And especially, kind of stemming back to what we talked about earlier with like just surrounding yourself with the right people, and like just being able to like go to them and they might see things that you might not, from a lot more experience.
You have such a great sphere of influence through your podcast. You could probably pull together your own team. But maybe you should do like a networking thing where specific just for people, because sometimes with our friends may not be interested, and our sphere of influence doesn't work. But we can meet people, like-minded people that want to do it. And maybe you could you could work it through the podcast. It's a good opportunity, I think.
That's super interesting, man. I like that a lot. I'm extremely fascinated by, like the idea that you were just talking about a couple minutes ago about, like pretty much getting like, a bunch of your friends and stuff together and doing like a mini syndication kind of thing. And even like, like you said, a little bit ago, like if you buy your first property on your own, like with FHA, like 3.5% down, like, or 5%, a really low barrier to entry in the bigger picture, and be able to like go through some of the hurdles and, get like your processes in place and like, be able to put down like on a piece of paper, like what your numbers look like what they'll look like, hopefully a year from now, like a projection kind of thing. And then be able to go to people that are like a lot less experienced or like maybe brand new to things. Like you throw the idea by them like, hey, like, I'm trying to get like 9 people together for something like this. Like, this is how it works. And just be able to kind of spell it out. Like, like I've done this, and like, just be able to kind of explain like super simple, like, so this is kind of what we're looking at. Is this something that you would maybe be interested in helping out with?
If you do it, I'll be one of your guys.
Sweet, let's do it.
You're going to be in charge. You take the reins. I'll put some money in.
That's a deal, Michael. But yeah, like it sounds crazy. And like, especially, like being around like greater Boston, like houses are expensive out here, and like, obviously, oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, all I was going to say is they are. Yeah. They are. But the areas that I'm seeing is not Providence is actually another ascending. Everything's an ascending market, right? Because inflation is making stuff go up, and then the real estate market is everything, and low rates. There's a lot of factors right now. But outside of Providence, the suburbs of Providence, I think you can still get multifamilies. And if you look at the cash flow, I think there's value there. Mm-hmm. And then I think the Worcester suburbs, or even Worcester itself. I mean, look at you're doing Leominster, right? There's value there. And then I'm not as bullish on Western Mass, but you can still get value out there. In 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, when I was kind of in buying mode because the values were so low, mm-hmm. Man, you could buy a 2 or 3 family in like Springfield area for like $40,000. So I just feel like it is, but there's a lot of elasticity out there, and there's nothing to anchor it. And if Worcester becomes not like Boston, but like Boston in a way, right? It's like a focal point. And instead of people driving from Leominster to Boston, they're actually driving from Leominster to go to work in Worcester, right? Because it's infrastructure there now. That can anchor it, and I think Providence can anchor around the Providence area. And I think there's not only if you're going to buy a 2 or 3 family for yourself, but if you syndicate with your friends and you're doing a 7 unit, a 9 unit, a 40 unit, you can do that. And I think those areas, and there's a lot of multis in those areas too.
That's super interesting. Honestly, like I've only ever been to Rhode Island like once or twice, but like I've heard, of some people that are like super interested in like some of the markets down there, and like I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Like
I think there's a lot of value in the Providence suburbs and maybe Providence itself. Yeah. It used to be Brockton. Everybody was buying around here, and there was great value in Brockton. And I remember this was probably quite a while ago. It was probably 2014. But someone had brought me a 3-family in Brockton, and it was like $350. I remember thinking $350, like that's just way too high. And I don't think you can get they're probably $600. You can probably find a 3-family for $750,000 now in Brockton. And so if because Brockton's still kind of close enough to Boston, that's where it's anchoring it. But I think now you got to go to either the Providence or the Worcester suburbs.
Yeah. Like somewhere that hasn't really like kind of blown up yet, I guess, in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think both of those have value, especially Worcester right now, right? Yeah. Because Worcester literally, it's outside of the market. The market's making everything go up, right? Because of market conditions. But Worcester, outside of the market conditions, has this value because infrastructure is being built there.
That's so true.
Jobs bring people, and people bring rent, right? People bring rent. They're your customers, right? Renters.
Definitely. I really like that city too, man. Worcester. I was pretty bullish about. I was actually looking to buy out there, and like the only thing for me is because like I'm still living in Tewksbury right now. Is like it was an hour away. Like on a good day, like the sky's sunny, like 70 degrees and everything. And like I was just trying to think
during COVID.
Yeah, right. And that was kind of my only thing, but like the amount of exactly, like the infrastructure, and like there's like 1 million colleges around there, and like all these huge buildings going up, like it's crazy. Like I love that city, especially from an investment angle.
Yeah, you're probably, if you're buying in Worcester, you're probably already paying a little bit more than the property is worth. And the reason is because everybody sees the value, right? Everybody knows that this might be worth X, but the value is going up because, they're putting in this over here, this over here. So I actually think the suburbs of it, you might be able to get a little more value.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. So, Michael, what's kind of your drive and your vision for the long term?
That's a great question. I love talking about real estate.
Yeah.
And I love talking about entrepreneurship. That's why I thought it'd be great to come on your podcast. And thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you.
In a way, so I have 2 things that drive me. And one is I'm super competitive. I wish I could play like professional sports, just like, 5'8.5". It wasn't in the cards. Not the most athletic guy either. But I love the competition. And I love helping people and just doing what we're doing now, talking and sharing experience, right? You're teaching me things and I'm teaching you things. And the way that I kind of get that satisfaction is from doing real estate finance deals. And so I love deals that are complicated. The more complicated they are, other lenders said, hey, we can't do that. If other lenders can't do it and I can figure out a way that I can protect my investors and do the deal, then I feel like somehow there's all these pieces and I can put them all together. And then I'm in the process helping some group that's, stuck and they're going to lose their vision for changing this property into an ad value, and I can come in and help. So that's to me, that would be like a win-win. And if I can make money doing it, then that's great too. But that would be kind of where I'm going. And as far as a vision long-term for the company, we're actually we're in a building right now, and we're in the second floor, which is kind of a small piece of the building.
Uh-huh.
And we're renovating the first floor. We're going to move down there in the spring, and I'm hoping to hire some loan officers somewhere in the next few months. So if anybody out there wants to get in and be a hard money lender, a hard money loan officer, I would love to bring somebody in. I don't think you really even need experience. Just somebody that maybe, and someone that's doing what you're doing, an investor, but they want another source of income. I would love to get some more loan officers in here. I actually do like 90% of the sales right now. I own the company and I do most of the sales. It's a little overwhelming. Yeah. So I would love to have people come in and be able to, if you're meeting a lot of people, anybody that you could send my way, I would be really grateful.
Of course. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I really love that. That's crazy.
My other vision is I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at my house, and I have a 15-year-old, and my wife wants to have another baby in a few months. So it's not to blow my brains out. It's like crazy.
That's awesome. So Michael, with the company, like, do you guys cover like Massachusetts or like New England, or what's kind of your forte? Sure. I guess.
So I grew up in Quincy, and I lived in South Boston most of my adult life. And I had an opportunity. This building that we're in right now is in Quincy, so we do a lot of business, probably Greater Boston, but we're seeing a lot more deals. Believe it or not, suburbs, Worcester in the suburbs, and Providence in the suburbs. Because I didn't tell you that story because I just thought of it myself. I just see it every day with investors, right, from experience. Yeah. So we're in, I think right now we're probably focused a lot in Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And then because both of those are hot, it's actually trickling into New Hampshire a little bit too. So border of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. And I was a borrower for a long time, a local guy, and almost all the borrowers that we have here are from Massachusetts. And we're just local, and we're dealing with local people mostly. Anywhere from the first deal to the people that are pretty experienced doing fix and flip type stuff. Sometimes people use this as a bridge. So they'll set up like the guys that we both know that did the deal in Gardner. So they use bank financing. Yeah. But if sometimes you have a good deal, you might put up the money non-refundable on your deposit, or you might just really want to do the deal and it's a great deal. And sometimes banks are not the fastest or easiest to work with. And sometimes you get really close to the finish line and they just say no. Yeah. And so people will call us and say, hey, I need like 2.7 million next week, which sounds crazy, but for us, that's what we do, right? We're private lenders. So we go real fast. So we'll lend, the bank fails, we'll come in and we'll lend on that. Or people just doing like fix and flip projects. Your place in Leominster, you're going to buy and live in it. But if you could have bought that property for 300, but it needed like 80 grand.
Bunch
of work, right? But then you'd be into it for 380 instead of, or 400 or whatever, but it's tough to get a loan from a bank for that acquisition construction loan. So people would come to us, you would fix it all up, and then you can go get an FHA loan and live in it, or you could, just rent it out or whatever. But that's kind of the general kind of theme. I'm sure most of your viewers out there probably have heard of private lending before. I don't think it's anything too new.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I just forgot what I was gonna say. So like, I think it's like super important, especially like working with a lot of people that, like you're super close with, like in Boston, and then like having them, like tell their friends and like, other people like super local, and just kind of having that aspect and like, just having everything like super tight, I guess you could say, and then like people start to tell their friends and like it branches out and like.
It is by far, I think, and this transcends to all businesses, no matter what you do, whether you're, doing barbershop or whatever. It's always restaurants. It's always word of mouth. I did get something though. I'm working really hard on getting new business. I got this thing called a business card. Just got it.
Whoa.
So everything was like, hey, we get a call. Like, oh, so-and-so gave me a number. Hey, what's up? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. So, but yeah, we're all organic. I think you are too, right? You're a social media guru, but Jeff, the guy who sent it, that was all word of mouth.
Yeah. I think we connected actually on like Instagram or LinkedIn, I think. And we just headed off and, kind of went from there.
How are you finding LinkedIn? You like it?
I do. I love LinkedIn as a platform. The point that I'm at now, though, man, which kind of annoys me, is like I've used it so much and like connected with so many people that like it wants to make me pay for it now. And I want to say it's like $50 or $60 a month or something like that, like to continue like using it. And I'm like, yeah. So I've kind of like steered away from it. But like, especially for people just starting off, like I really, really like how LinkedIn, how like you can search for people and like put the filters in. So guys, like kind of what I'm talking about, like if you haven't used LinkedIn before, is, if you're looking for like a private lender in Boston, like you can go to LinkedIn, type in private lenders and put in like, there's like location and like, I think there's a couple other filters as well, in Boston and greater Boston and Massachusetts and New England, like, and then, you can meet people like Michael and, Jeff, like just like searching like that, you know what I mean? Like exactly what you're looking for, like can show up. And like, I kind of wish like, Instagram and Facebook were a little bit more like that. So like you can look for like exactly who you're looking for in like exactly the right spot. But
I agree. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. It's almost like the old school yellow pages, but there's all kinds of content in there. It's unusual if you were looking for. It's not a good example to use. I was going to use you, but your podcast is so many videos. But if you're looking for a private lender and you find someone on LinkedIn, I'm a little bit older, so I don't have as much experience with social media as much, but I try to, post stuff about us. And I do that so people like know who I am. Yeah. And that's for better or for worse. They like people look at my videos. I do not want to work with that guy. That's fine. But for the most part, you just put you out there. Yeah. And for better or worse, people will say, I know everything now about this company. This is probably not the company for me. This is the company for me. I think it's great because it really gives you, again, I keep dating myself, but back in the day, you would go into the yellow pages and you'd look for a business, right? And now you can not only look for it, but you can just get so much intimate information about the company. I think it has great value. And I was kind of joking about the business cards, but we are mostly word of mouth, but we get business now from LinkedIn and from other social media platforms. Yeah. Just trying to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. And there's a ton of options out there. And I think the borrower or anybody looking for any service or product can say, I can probably get the same thing from a lot of different people. I want to pick someone that I think has the same company culture, philosophy, or likability, or whatever it is that I want.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, man. Like it's almost like now, it's 2021, almost 2022. Like it's almost like if you're not on social media or like online at all, like it's kind of weird, you know what I mean? Like I don't mean that in the wrong way for people. You're
living in a house with the shades pulled and all the lights off.
Exactly.
My phone's not ringing. I can't figure out why.
That's the thing, like everybody is so like focused on social media now. And like I think it's really valuable what you said about, like if your company or like you as an individual, like your brand is on social media, like people can vet you, you know, a lot easier and like see like, you know, kind of like just on their end, like you don't know, you know, if you're somebody that they would want to work with, you know, and like
or even work for. In fact, we're small. We have like 6 people here, but half the people here, more than half the people here, I got from LinkedIn.
yes,
From either
awesome.
being talking one day. In fact, Emily Scanlon, she just got married, so I gotta say her name right. She's not here, but she's in the office next door. She works remote on Fridays. She runs this company. She worked for one of my competitors for 8 years. And I would have never known that she was even, that particular lender was winding down. I would have never known that. But we shared stories back and forth, just lender to lender, like, hey, what are you doing? How was your day? You know, did anybody torture you today? Did you torture anybody today? That kind of stuff. And then one day she said, hey, the gentleman I'm working for is winding down. You know, are you hiring? And it just so happened to be right after the pandemic, we were kind of going through a growth period.
Yeah.
So I'm indebted. Again, I'm a little bit older, so I was a little anti-social media, but now I'm all for it.
Yeah. I love that, man. You know, like, especially what you said a minute ago about like just putting yourself out there and like just the power from that, you know, like in the example that you just said, like you guys were, you know, like doing some crazy stuff and like, you know, certain events were happening, you know, with this person and like their other company and like, you know, finding you from, did she find you from LinkedIn? Sorry. Or like on,
I don't remember on the LinkedIn part which one of us was the genesis of it, but we had never met, but we had spoken quite a few times.
Yeah.
Probably commented on each other's posts on something. Yeah. Probably where it came from.
And like that's a really big one that you just said right there is like the ability to like maintain relationships like in today's day and age. Like if you have each other on social media and like, you know, both of you guys are posting what you're doing and like projects that you're on and like, you know, people that you're working with, like it's so easy now, you know, just to support each other. And like, it's literally like, you know, you click a couple buttons and like, you know, leave a little bit of feedback, like, oh, like keep killing it, man. Like you're doing great. And like you're just like maintaining a relationship, you know, it could be like, you know, across the US or like, you know, across the state or something like that. And, you know, like you're building.
Yeah, you can support each other. You can also educate each other. Like I talk to my competitors on LinkedIn and say, hey, how you doing? Because I most of them are pretty cool. I like them. You know, we might fight over clients occasionally, but for the most part, we share information with each other.
Yeah.
And then I also think there's a huge benefit to the people, to anybody, me or anyone who's looking for something, because you can also, you said vet, and I was thinking more so, I want people to know like really our company culture and me and Jeff and Emily, like I wanted to know us and to make sure like they're excited to come. We're excited to work with you. You excited to work with us. And if not, and somebody else is, that's cool. You know, we'll be, you know, you can be happy and do whatever you do. But also if there are people who may have not the best business practices out there, and then those will come to light through social media. And I think it makes the whole like environment, whatever environment you're in, this is the real estate environment, but it sheds a light on all of us. And that just keeps us all on our toes and makes us better.
Yeah. I feel like social media kind of exposes us. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. You know, like it's gonna show off, you know, like your intentions and like your execution and stuff, whether it's like, you know, doing some like really crazy stuff and like helping out like so many people and like, you know, doing this, like these really, really bigger picture, like, you know, giving value to everybody kind of things, or not so much, you know, and like, yeah, I mean, even on, like if you go to Google and like, you know, people leaving like Google reviews and stuff, like anybody can do that, you know, and like then when they look up, you know, like your business or whatever it is, like people can see like their experiences and like it's literally like clicks away. Like it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. That part I don't like quite as much because I have a friend who owns 2 nightclubs, restaurants during the day, nightclubs at night. And he has the place is great, but he has so many, like, I feel like a lot of bad reviews that are unwarranted. sometimes, that can be better or for worse. But I think that's what I kind of like about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's not really about, it's not about reviews in the sense of after this podcast, I'm going to give you X stars, right?
Yeah.
It's more about, like, if I want to do business with you, I click on some of your videos and just see who you are.
Exactly.
That's a much better representation than somebody else's no comment 1 star.
Yeah. And like, you don't know the story. You know,
Right.
like if you can like you said, like if you can physically like go on their page and like, see them doing a video or like, posting something, like, giving value to people, like you can kind of like get a dig into like their personality and like, like their company and stuff. Like if they're just like giving out information, like and helping people, like that's awesome. Like that could be somebody that you want to work with. Like, this guy sees like, the bigger picture of like wanting to help out everybody. And then, it's just kind of like building a presence,
Yeah,
and like,
it might be a good space if we relate it back to the real estate side. I think if you want to syndicate, if you want to get started,
yeah,
there's a lot of people I think that you could find that you like, that you may not even be ready to engage in any kind of a business transaction. You just want some information. There are plenty of people I think online that would be happy to share that information and may have already shared it. You just have to read it online or watch it. So there's a great value, I think, even if not a business transaction, just for an education standpoint, in LinkedIn and other social media platforms as well. But I bet just from watching your videos for a bunch of people that are maybe have a 9-to-5 job and want to get into an entrepreneurial type of thing or want to get into real estate, they can educate themselves right there.
Yeah, like one thing that really kind of blew my mind, man, was like how many people like might be into this kind of stuff, but like they might be like nervous or, like so early to things that like they don't want to like post and stuff about it. And like, maybe like people won't like think that well about them or something, or like, they're doing something like that's not like kind of stupid or something like that, or, not supportive. And like, as soon as you put yourself out there, like once in a while, people come out of the woodwork that like, it's like the craziest thing. Like it happens like once in a great while, like there were a couple kids I went to high school with, that like I've never really talked to, like been around them and stuff. And like, as soon as you start putting yourself out there and like just doing your thing and just running with it.
And being genuine, yourself, not like a fake self, but like being genuine. It's very endearing, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And like people will just come out of the woodwork and be like, dude, like I'm into this kind of thing, but I'm not really sure where to start. And then all of a sudden you have a conversation, and like you meet for coffee and like, maybe bring them to like a meetup or something like that, or, an event or something. All of a sudden they're meeting more people. Like they tell them about like certain books and podcasts. Like you could have like totally just like changed somebody's life, because you're just like doing your thing and people see that. Like I feel like that's one of the most like powerful things in today's day and age is just like building a presence online, because like you said, even like, like something like LinkedIn, like if somebody types in like real estate and like Boston, like who's going to come up, like agents, like lenders, investors, like, and if those are people like in your sphere, I mean, even like really in any business, like if you wanted to get into, I don't know, like we were talking about earlier, like if you wanted to buy like a franchise or like a restaurant or something like that, like, yeah, it's, like, where do I start? I mean, like you could start like if you went on LinkedIn or like social media or something and see who's doing that in your area, and like reach out and like see who has a presence in that field and kind of see.
Yeah, you can immerse yourself into that ecosystem.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such a powerful thing.
Yeah, I for me it's new.
Yeah.
But I like it. This is my second podcast.
Love it, man. That's awesome. So, so Michael, what do you consider to be the biggest variable in expanding your clientele? We talked a little bit about, a couple of different things in there, but.
Well, that's a good question. I haven't really focused so much on expanding the clientele or my borrower base or growing my business as black and white and think, how do we get another customer in the door? Yeah. I'm new to social media, so I didn't really know how to do that. But what I thought was, we're just going to put, this is for just for social media, I guess. We're going to put content out there, and we just want people to see what we do and who we are.
Yeah.
And I think if you can do that, and obviously you have good experience, you've been doing it for a while, you have good products, I think what happens is either maybe old clients come back to you, new clients call you up. So I just started doing social media like about a year ago, and I just started reaping the benefits recently. But I have people call me that I don't know who they are anymore, calling my cell phone, saying, I got your number off of LinkedIn. I got your number off of social media. So we haven't really focused specifically on scaling and growing a business, saying, how do we advertise, or how do we do this, or how do we do that? We're just trying to get out there and get our name out there. And I know I'm really appreciative that you asked me to come on, because I'm really good following and good customers. I think a lot of people that want to get into real estate, I think, are the kind of people that I think eventually may come to us. Even yourself, you're using FHA on this deal. Mm-hmm. You stay in real estate, it's only a matter of time before you end up using a private lender.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely. Like eventually you're going to run out of capital, like trying to do it.
Run out of capital, plus yeah, I have a lot of borrowers that can actually go to a bank. In fact, our average credit score is probably 700. All of our customers, they're all bankable. Yeah. And it's not like we don't do no money down. Borrowers put down a decent amount of money. Our rates aren't that much higher than a bank. In fact, we're probably lower than most lenders. Mm-hmm. But people use us, I think, for the convenience and the speed and convenience is why people use private lenders.
Yeah,
closing in 2 or 3 weeks, surety of execution, and then just the easiness. Right? We talked about this offline a little bit. How you got a little bit tortured, right? What was the name of the program you were doing?
The MHP one. It's like a mass housing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I never heard of MHP one. It sounds like a coronavirus. It was that, and then you went to FHA, and you had to do different appraisals, learning lesson, right?
Oh, 100%.
And then on the commercial side, it's even harder. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it's easy to use private lending. There's a shameless plug right there.
No, that's huge, man. And like, I don't know too much about private lending, like quite yet, but it sounds like extremely powerful. And like, like we were talking about earlier, like there are going to be, some of those properties that a regular bank won't lend to, if it needs like a ridiculous amount of work, and like, like you guys are there to be able to finance that, like get that project going and keep rolling, I think it's the coolest thing in the world, like, especially to be able to close in like, like a couple weeks and like all this crazy stuff, like go. Like that's wicked cool.
We've had this year, maybe 2 or 3 closings that we did in 24 to 48 hours.
Oh my God.
What happened was the borrowers went to conventional financing. The day before they were supposed to close, for whatever reason, the bank wouldn't finance the deal, and their deposit was either in jeopardy or they wanted to close on the deal no matter what.
Yeah.
And the title was already run. Everything was done because the bank attorney had already done everything, but they had backed out. And that's cool. Doing a closing in 48 hours. It's like crazy, but it's cool.
That's absolutely insane. Wow. So, Michael, how do you define wealth? This is one of my favorite questions to ask people.
Would I be too corny if I said like I judge a man's wealth by how many children he has?
No.
Oh my God. Or your insanity, maybe. I think that I would just take wealth almost and just throw it out the window and just talk about what financially makes you happy. And I can get happiness out of closing a deal, whether I'm buying a deal or helping someone else out, because deals are hard to do. Yeah. And then there's that competitive satisfaction of getting a deal done, right? Yeah. Just like somebody broke something and I can't fix anything in a car. I can barely put gas.
I feel you, man.
Barely put gas. Like I'm like, it's raining out, I'm just going to the full service. But I would think if a mechanic there's a problem no one else can fix, and that guy says, I can fix it. Well, that person says, I can fix it, right? That probably gives them a pretty good feeling like, hey, I fixed it. Well, I feel like that about lending or doing a deal. You can get satisfaction out of it. But there's also the income part, right? You can make money doing real estate transactions, and you can gain like long-term wealth where maybe you own $10 million worth of you've been doing it for 10, 20 years, you own $10 million worth of real estate, and those properties are cash flowing and you're making money. But a lot of times if you do that, you're in a position where maybe you're not making a lot of money in the beginning. So in the beginning, some of your properties might be actually making $200 a month, but the refrigerator goes and it's $2,500. Yeah. You're cash flowing 24 for the year, and now the last day of the year the fridge goes, and you went from making 2,500 to losing $100, right? So in the beginning, there's like suffering in the beginning. I think for me there was. Yeah. In the beginning it was tough, and I was young, and I had friends that had started entry-level positions. And as we got older, they started to make more money and move up the corporate ladder. And that was a great path for them. And there were times in my life where I thought I had made the wrong decision because I hadn't made it yet. Because success, I think in general, and at least I think in real estate too, even though you're always stacking bricks and trying to buy more properties and get your cash, success doesn't really it doesn't really go like this. It kind of does like this, and then you spike up, and you kind of do that, you spike up again. And so there were times in my life where I was, doing this for so long that I started to lose faith. Yeah. And it's difficult. And I stuck with it, and eventually I got up to there where, for me, I still need to work, but I guess I could work less if I really wanted to and try to live off my properties. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I still enjoy working, but I think there's two kind of paths that you can take, and there's value to both. But the wealth part, if you go and you take the job route and you're making $200,000 or $300,000 a year, it is right. You're making great money, so you have great money coming in every month, yeah, right? Or $500,000 a year. But are you really creating like true wealth? I don't know if you really are. Or if you take the other path, you might be eating ramen noodles a lot, and you may have roommates, right? And you may live in a multifamily, and you may not drive the car that you always want if you want to take that other path. But I think the other path at the end, I think again, everybody's different, whatever you're looking for as an individual. Yeah. But if you're okay having a little bit less on the short term, and you want it for the long term, I think that real estate and entrepreneurialism is the way to go.
All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets. Until next time, let's build together.